Hi guys, I will talk about global strategy today. What is global strategy and why is it important to understand it? Uh, we live in a world uh, that is now facing a period where we think that globalization is uh, receding, where we see that our interactions in terms of international trade and travel are decreasing as well. So companies might ask themselves how to succeed in this new uncertain international environment. Indeed, that is what global strategy is. I would say it's a unique approach to success in international contexts. It builds on definition of strategy by scholars such as Mike Porter, who are stressing that strategy is about being different. It also builds on other research in strategic management that looks in uniqueness of firm behavior and key factors underlying success and failure of firms. What makes global strategy different is that it looks deeply into the role of international context and how you need to craft your strategy to succeed beyond just one country. While global strategy is often associated with multinational firms, it is also relevant to smaller firms or even to firms operating just in their home country. Often they are facing competitors who are themselves active in a number of markets. And the digital transformation is creating both opportunities and threats for companies in their endeavors to be successful internationally and challenges our preconceptions about global strategy. So traditionally, I would say global strategy has started with understanding some of the foundations of this field, such as some thoughts on global versus regional strategy, whether we are semi-globalized or globalized, and whether firms should pursue international markets aggressively or slowly. The frameworks and concepts such as the concept of transnational strategy that are important in understanding how much you adapt your behavior to different markets, and on the other hand, how much you standardize and seek economies of scale and kind of aggregate your activities across a number of countries to achieve advantages, and perhaps also how much you learn across borders and take advantage of various location advantages of countries where you operate. Then the underlying framework of strategy created by Mike Peng called the strategy tripod is quite useful and can be applied to international global strategy issues such as foreign market entry. So it's important to consider the industry and competition that you're facing, to look at your internal resources and capabilities, and also to engage in understanding institutional environments that you operate in. Both external, but also institutions are related to human actions and organizational level issues. Finally, in implementing global strategy, companies need to think about their structure and organization. How do they create the divisions or product units or services that they provide? How they structure the company? They can't think of themselves as isolated, so it's important to consider the role of alliances and collaboration and the underpinnings of any long-term competitive sustainable advantage is innovation and knowledge management. So those issues need to be taken into consideration in implementing the global strategy. Well, this is a traditional perspective in global strategy. I would say it's quite important to perhaps modify it a bit, perhaps in line with my definition that global strategy is about a unique approach to success in international contexts. So I would say the context-driven approach is in particular relevant to global strategy. Increasingly, it's not just about the nature of industry or the countries where you operate, which is one aspect of context. It is also about the levels of uncertainty that you're facing in various environments, and also looking at organizational context as well. So that's kind of the first part, the context-driven strategy. Then I would say in practice, actually, it's important to think about the strategic actions that you or your organization can take. Here, I would say that it's important to understand different levels of risk associated with the moves, and some of them are more value creating, and other are kind of risk ensuring. So there's bets, there's hedges, and there's constant reconfiguration of your resources and capabilities to be adaptive, and perhaps also try to shape the environment and market that you operate in or that you're trying to create. So that takes us to the last of the kind of three prongs of my approach to global strategy. So it should be context driven, it should be action driven, or context sensitive and action driven, and finally it should be design led. So I think you should approach strategy as kind of a design exercise, in a way, a creative project where you're trying to imagine the future and craft your approach to being successful across borders in an imaginative way, trying to perhaps shape the market or assess your ability to do so. I would say that you need to think about the three REs. So I would say you need to redesign your business. In particular, now we see in the post-coronavirus environment, a lot of companies are thinking about embracing the digital transformation, rethinking how much physical interaction with customers they need. So we'll be redesigning your business as a key aspect of the design-led approach to global strategy. Then I think we need to reinvent what it means to innovate, and think beyond product or service, think more ecosystems, platforms, trying to see how you can step beyond the traditional understanding of innovation. And the final RE is resilience. So we learned in the corona crisis that it's extremely important to create, in a way, buffers, redundancies, perhaps even not to globalize, say, your supply chains too much. Have a plan B for the black swan events, or what is possibly coming as the green swans, the environmentally driven disasters, and have a strategy that is truly looking in the long term. And the sustainability perhaps takes shapes of not just business sustainability, but also kind of broadly connected and embedded sustainability in the ecological and societal sense. So to sum up, global strategy, in my view, is a unique approach to succeeding in international contexts. It needs to be context sensitive with a broad definition of context. It should be action driven. And finally, it needs to be also design led. So in some of the other videos that are available on the Federlight website, you can explore some of these topics in more depth. Thank you for your attention.